I will introduce Dr. Marcos Moldez, who's a senior UX researcher for product at Pinterest. And he is joining us today and speaking on Beyond Empathy Building an inclusive UX research practice using co-design methodologies. Dr. Moldez is an ethnographer interested in understanding why people do what they do and think what they think. Currently at Pinterest, he's focused on content creators, the emerging creator economy, and building user empathy that can help us build the tools and products to serve our users. He's also worked as an innovation consultant across a variety of sectors, including retail, automotive, health, and financial services for companies such as Tiffany's, the John Lewis Partnership, Ford, and the Royal London Group. So his experience as a social scientist helps him understand human behavior and how it can inform design and strategy. Please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you. That do what they do, think what they think was amazing. When I was a consultant, clients like love that language. A little about me. Senior quantitative or qualitative, I don't know numbers, qualitative UX researcher at Pinterest, the research lead for the content and curation org, so primarily focused on content creators, and have just recently shifted into our shopping function. Prior to that, I was at an agency that gave me the most ridiculous title of resident ethnographer. And before that, I was in grad school. And I'm a Miss Piggy aficionado. Okay. So working at the intersection of product and design, UX research really strives to ensure that products are rooted in actual human needs. Years ago, I was in a brainstorming session and my MD sort of turned to me and he was like, are we building something that's novel or are we building something that's innovative? Because novel is something that people will find cool, they'll use for a couple days, maybe a couple months, and then it'll drop off. Innovative will change the way they do something or the way they live their life. Like, so what are we doing here? And that is sort of been like the kind of core memory or sort of core way I think about what I do at Pinterest. So we work with designers, product managers, and engineers to help them understand the needs of their users and ensure that products are understood and useful to the people that they have been built for. Acting as a sort of like advocate for users really does, capitalism is what it is. And so there's often decisions you have to make and which battle are you going to fight and which battle can't you fight. So it requires balancing the needs of users and the realities of enterprise limitations, right? So and how many engineering hours can we afford to put towards solving a problem? What are the technical requirements? What's the budget you're working with? And as a researcher, you're really in this kind of position of, advocating for the users you've been asked to speak for, while also recognizing that like there isn't sort of like unlimited eng or design hours to put towards a problem. And this can often put us in conflict with our cross-functional stakeholders. Researchers were often seen as like the Debbie Downers in the room. We're often sort of seen as like an impediment to velocity. That's something a product manager once called me, and I said, thank you. But it can be a real challenge when you're trying to sort of do right and do the best you can, while also recognizing like, I work in the private sector, a company needs to make money, things can't just cost astronomical amounts for, because I say so. I mean, I feel like they should, but they don't. And part of this tension as well is we end up doing a lot of speaking for, which is always a bit uncomfortable, right? Particularly when you're trying to work with marginalized communities. I'm a cisgendered, white passing Latino male. What business do I have in trying to sort of like speak on behalf of communities that I have the pleasure of working with and am, excited to work with, but also recognizing there's some real sort of messed up power dynamics happening there. So, how can we authentically represent the needs and realities of our users to our cross-functional partners? What role does UX research have in ensuring that we center our users' experiences, their context, and their needs when designing new products, features, and services? how do we sort of do this in sort of like the best way we can? These are the sorts of things I think a lot about while sort of anxiously worrying about things. I do a lot of, so my at least attempt to sort of tackle some of these questions is to use co-design, also known as co-creation for folks familiar in the consulting world. It's really a design process that uses input and feedback from users from beginning to end. And I'm going to talk a little bit about a case study where we did just that. So researchers work with users to first understand the current pain points, barriers, and frictions in a product or service experience, and then work collaboratively to design an ideal future state. I picked these two. This is a very dated Simpsons reference. Like I'm sure Gen Z's in the room. I'm sorry, you weren't actually alive when this episode came out. Homer Simpson got to design his dream car, and it cost like, it bankrupted his brother's company. And then I hate this quote from Henry Ford. I mean, Henry Ford as a human aside, it's actually also incorrect. He never said that, but you often see in design and people who sort of like crap on co-design. I was like, wow, you know, like Edison always said, if he asked what he should build, it's better candles. And it's like, that is like fundamentally incorrect. Humans are very good at articulating their needs. They might not know how to build the thing to fix their needs, but they are very good at articulating their needs. And so critics of co-design see it as an unrealistic approach. Co-design provides a way for users to advocate for themselves in their own words and through their own frames of experience. Another really great consulting tagline there. And so this requires us, though, to partner with designers to translate feedback from users into products or concepts, and provides a way to engage with people and the communities we're trying to serve. So partnering with a designer, you know, we can sort of work collaboratively with the users we have in mind to, one, understand like what their needs are, what is the ideal future state, and then the work of the designer is to really kind of translate that into mocks, into a prototype, into concepts that, you know, we can sort of present to our eng partners and build. So I'll talk a little bit about the case study. This case study was around monetization and content creators. So like a little tie-in to Gabriella's talk just now. Really, you know, trying to design a strategy to creator monetization rooted in the needs of creators themselves. So let me tell you a little bit about the creators we serve at Pinterest, or how we at least talk about creators at Pinterest. First, we think about them at a very high level as just people who create original content for an audience beyond their friends and family. So this is not everyone with an Instagram, but this is people who, you know, have an audience or are in the process of building themselves an audience beyond people that they know personally. They're currently monetizing or making some kind of living. That might be, you know, 1% of their income. That might be none, but they're sort of on that pathway of figuring out how to earn a living from their content. We primarily work with creators who create content in our core content verticals. So the things that people come to Pinterest for, which is home decor, fashion, food, beauty, crafts, and DIY. Generally, these folks publish content on Pinterest and at least one other platform or a personal website. So more often than not, shockingly, we are not the only place people publish content. So they might be on Pinterest, but they may also be on Instagram, TikTok, a blog, YouTube, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's a bit of a, one of the things when I started researching creators 3 years ago was something that I thought was really important to sort of drive home is that like our relationship to our creators is incredibly important. Creators are a really important part of our platform's content acquisition strategy. So creators upload beautiful imagery and videos to the platform, which is then served to our users who are looking for ideas or inspiration, in a specific topic. This content included This content sort of includes an embedded link that users can click out to read and see more. That's kind of Pinterest in a nutshell. We're a visual bookmarking platform that clicks out to, so you can find additional information in other places on the internet. Historically, creators have used Pinterest to drive traffic to their blogs, where they monetize their content via ads they run on their website. So most creators think of Pinterest as a passive income stream in their sort of like monetization strategy. Great, I've got this beautiful blog, I run some ads on it. Everyone knows the story of when you go to look up a chicken dinner recipe and you end up reading about a blogger's grandmother's uncle's piano tuner's husband's cousin before you get to the recipe. Like, that's because that's an ad optimization strategy. They want you to look at as many ads as possible so that they can make a living or make some money from the recipe that you're going to for them. So we're a really important SEO and traffic driving tool for bloggers. Some of the challenges and pain points that emerged as we were doing this research, or are just true of the reality of the landscape today. First is changing audience habits. As someone once said to me, or an engineer once said to me, like, who even goes to a blog anymore? Consumer habits around content consumption are really shifting away from the kind of open internet towards walled content gardens. So for example, more people are consuming content on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, than necessarily going from like one website to another website to another website. So it's a big shift that presents like a challenge, not just for creators, but also like Condé Nast is sweating this stuff, right? Like anyone who creates content, be that, an individual mommy blogger in Iowa or, Vogue magazine, is concerned about this shift. Platforms and algorithm changes. If you ask a creator how they feel about the Instagram algorithm today, sit down and grab a snack because you're going to be there a while. As algorithms change, creators are constantly on this hamster wheel of like, how do I keep up? How do I optimize? How do I make sure that the content I'm creating is getting to my audience, which is increasingly a challenge. Everyone wants to become a content creator these days. If you ask the average middle schooler, everyone wants to be a YouTube celebrity. And so a saturated market makes it difficult for creators to stand out. This is particularly true for marginalized communities, presenting like some real challenges for creators of color, for queer creators, for differently or disabled creators, excuse me. Smaller creators really struggle to connect with audiences and distinguish themselves. And finally, that monetization is a mystery. I describe it as people think like, oh, all I need to do is create content and I will become a millionaire, as almost akin to the like yoga teacher training, Avon lady pyramid scheme of yesteryear, right? It's actually like incredibly difficult. So I thought I'd make this like an autoethnographic project, and I like set out to become a content creator with my husband. We lasted a week. It almost ended in divorce. I was like, I love my day job. I'm never doing this. But it's a real unclear pathway in terms of, what do I charge? What's my content worth? How do I grow? How do I negotiate with brands? How do I land a brand deal? All of this is a bit of a mystery that people sort of fumble their way through. So these are some of the like challenges that content creators face when first starting out. Some of the enterprise challenges I faced with this project: product teams have a lot of assumptions about content monetization and lack clarity about understanding creator needs with respect to how creators approached monetizing their content and earning a living. There was a real broad misunderstanding about how creators approach publishing on multiple platforms and the desire to grow their business. So one of the big challenges I first had to face was, well, we want to grow a like Pinterest only creator group like that. If you are going to access, if you like a creator, they're going to be publishing on Pinterest only. I was like, that is entirely not how the internet works. So, spent a lot of time sort of explaining that creators don't have the luxury of publishing on one platform. They need to be everywhere. And so the tagline I came to use is just that creators are task heavy and time poor. You need to publish not just on Pinterest, but you also need to be on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, on your blog, with a newsletter. You might be on Snapchat, and you need to be engaging with your audience in all those places, because engagement drives distribution, and that's sort of how you make money. Product teams as well sort of felt that creators were comparable to everyday individual users who we call pinners. They're like, oh, like they're just pinners who upload pictures of their brunch. And I was like, you have clearly never tried to make good looking content, sir or madam. That is also not the case. In reality, creators are very different from our typical end user when it comes to needs, priorities, and expectations. And we really needed to shift the definition of creators away from the perception of these are just users who take photos of brunch towards folks who are creating content that our audiences value, and towards thinking of them less as a client and more as a partner. And that was like a lot of storytelling and a lot of shifting perceptions and attitudes on product teams. We got there, yay, we're here, but co-design and a lot of UX research really helped to sort of humanize and tell a more complex story of who these people are. So the objectives for this study were identify a set of product features and tools that address the needs of content creators with respect to monetization, help product teams to develop a deeper empathy and understand the challenges faced by content creators today, and develop a product strategy that articulates a differentiated offering for content creators. So we're not looking to go head to head with TikTok, we will lose. So how are we different, and how are we providing something that is different and valuable for creators to want to spend some of their very precious time publishing on the platform? So our primary research questions were, what are the current challenges and pain points that creators face when trying to monetize? This is something that, I mean, as a researcher in the field, I could have listed this all out for them in 15 minutes, but I can say something until I'm blue in the face. But when a creator expresses it in their own words and their own experiences, the sort of cachet it has with the product team, no, because what Deborah said the other day in that focus group, that just really resonated with me. And I'm just like, are you kidding? I've been saying the same thing for 6 months. Okay, cool. What is the role of platforms like Pinterest and in the future of creator monetization? Like, what's our skin in the game, not just for us, but also for them? And finally, and importantly, how do creators want to make money in the future? Is the whole future brand deals? Is it something else? Are creators interested in sort of diversifying their revenue streams? What does that look like? So I thought, when I was embarking on this project, I thought a lot about compensation, because these weren't just folks who were going to do like a little bit of usability testing, give me half an hour of your time, test something and like go away. I was coming to these people for their expertise as subject matter experts. Compensation in applied research is often in the form of like a fun gift card or swag, or, and there are, I'm sure, I know at universities, there are also administrative and bureaucratic barriers to paying participants cash. I could write a whole dissertation on trying to pay my participants during my PhD, and I would have titled it, Who Ate the Bagel? So for this project, I worked with our legal and our creator management team to establish a consulting rate and found a payment provider who was able to facilitate cash payments to creators who participated in the project. That was really, really important to me, to ensure that these folks felt like partners, felt like experts, because they are experts. So how can I make sure that they are compensated adequately for their time? In terms of what we did, 20 in-depth interviews with a broad range of creators, including creators who weren't yet earning money from their content, but wanted to, creators who made less than half their income from their content, and full-time, fully monetized creators. I mean, we weren't talking to like 10 million followers on TikTok, but some of these creators had pretty sizable audiences and were making pretty comfortable living, but we wanted to make sure that we captured the broad range of what earning a living from content looked like. In addition, we did a series of iterative co-creation sessions with content creators. So 4 sessions were held on a weekly basis. Conversations from one week built the conversation for the next week. So I kind of didn't know what we were going to talk about from week to week. I had a rough idea of where I wanted to end up, but really, you know, I would spend the week synthesizing what I had heard the week before, prepping to like continue the conversation. And my design partner would also spend the week just sort of listening to what they said and prep us like concepts and design mocks to show them the following week. And we explored a variety of core Pinterest verticals. It was also important to me that we include folks from a number of different countries. Because of budget limitations, everyone needed to be English speaking, unfortunately. And because of our sort of priority markets, everyone was from the West. Just from a like logistics perspective, that's how it shook out. But we had folks from Germany, from the UK, from Canada, and from the US participate in this research. In terms of the in-depth interviews, participants were recruited from a number of fields, including platform and content verticals outside of our current makeup. I really wanted to make sure what we were building, like we don't know what Pinterest is going to look like 5 years from now. So I didn't want to design just for the recipe creator. I wanted to make sure that voices were captured from a broad range of people who make content. So I included musicians, I included comedians, I included OnlyFans creators. I learned a lot about obscenity law as a result, who were creating digital content and looking for ways to expand their business into e-commerce and services for hire. I will leave that there. I mean, it was interesting because I got asked, like, why are we talking to OnlyFans creators? And I sort of had to explain the history of the internet, and like, we can thank sex work for the credit card payment technology that facilitates all online transactions. I talked a little bit about the telex, that thing in France that people used to use to hook up with sort of before the internet. So I had to give people a bit of a history lesson, which was an interesting experience to do with a straight face in a meeting in a corporate setting. So for our first co-design session, we explored their current experience of monetization. I didn't want to talk about the future at all. I just wanted to hear, like, how are you thinking about this today? How are you making money? I cracked a lot of jokes to make it comfortable to talk about money, sort of like what I'm doing now, and really just explored how they were thinking about their business. I hired a futurist to create a set of scenarios of like, what are some of the possible ways making money on the internet can look in 5 years. And I presented these foresight worlds to them. Each one had sort of like positives and negatives. Some were more positive than others. And they were really constructed around the idea of audience engagement and monetization. So, you know, in the future, there will be like few people making money, but those people will be making a lot of money. In the future, there will be people, lots of people making a little bit of money, and kind of everything in between. I thought people were going to love the foresight thing. They hated it. They were like, I don't want to live in any of those worlds. And that was actually, I was like, great, I just spent a lot of money on this. I'm so glad. It actually worked out really well, because in rejecting, in that like categorical rejection of any of those options, they were very quickly able to articulate, here's why. Like, here's why I don't want that one, or that one, or that one, or that one. And this is why this matters to me so much. So that was wonderful. Between first and second sessions, we took our findings, bucketed them into key themes that identified some basic characteristics of different monetization needs, in addition to the in-depth interviews we had already conducted. And during the second session, we just went back with these themes and validated, like, did we hear you correctly? Was this right? Did we understand? And discuss like what these might look like in the product. I can't go into a ton of detail, unfortunately, due to NDA, but there was basically every session we would just come back and be like, did I capture this right? You know, did I understand you correctly? In our final session with this group of participants, we showed them design mocks and concepts to gather more feedback. So we began to translate the themes we had heard into like, what could passive income on Pinterest look like? Here's like a mock showing one possible design direction. What could selling digital services look like on Pinterest? Here's a mock. Give us some feedback. What do you think? Did this align with their expectations? Did this align with their expectations of the industry, of our platform in specific, and their kind of hopes and dreams more broadly? So we had spent at this point a lot of time with those folks, and we were a bit anxious about, did we just fall into a tunnel and we just really like our new creator friends, so we're just going to do what they say? We should validate with another group just as a control to make sure like this resonates with people we haven't built a very good personal relationship with. So we gathered a new group of creators and showed them what our original group had helped to design. They were broadly aligned, so like spiritually there, tactically, they had some notes, which I really appreciated, and to help us check for bias and just give us a fresh perspective. We also include in that validation group, we included some folks who were sort of like not kind of core Pinterest users, and were sort of working through in content monetization in a different way. So the outcomes of the project were a new product strategy, and this work stream really helped the organization focus on a strategy that centered creators and their needs front and center. When the head of product said, oh, yeah, we really need to think about this because creators are task heavy and time poor, which was my like tagline that I had been like cheering and saying in every meeting, I knew I'd won. I was like, great, he gets it. He understands that like we can't just expect people to build whatever we ask them to or do whatever we ask them to. Like they need a very clear ROI to spend time with us. More than that, we provided opportunities for engineers, for product managers, for designers, for customer ops people to hear directly from creators. Cross-functional stakeholders were better able to understand who they were building a product for. And finally, and the thing that I was most excited about and remain most excited about is a very user-centered roadmap that is like that, really understands that creators need a very clear reason and a very clear ROI to spend time on Pinterest. And so we need to find ways to make sure that they are earning a living from the time they spend with us. And that's all I've got. I think there'll be time for questions. Yeah, but thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Marcos Moldez, and for Gabriella Richards' presentation as well. Given the course of the morning, in order to begin the next session on time, we're going to unstructure the break, this little 15-minute slot here, so that you can ask questions collectively. I will relay the questions from online. Any comments you have from the audience, I can take them and repeat them up here. If you do need a bio break or the pastries and coffee, please feel free to meander in and out at will throughout the morning and the course of the day. But we're trying to keep on time as much as possible and recoup some of the loss this morning. So is there any question for either of the speakers that I can help relay?
Me too. So you talked a little bit about, the direction that these different platforms are going in. And with a movement kind of moving towards unpolished content and being real, showing what life is actually like without filters and apps like Be Real. Where do you think product design for Pinterest is heading? And do you think that that's going to be heavily focused on, you know, the direction of it would say another, say becomes real? Like a bike.
No, but so this question came up a lot because creators are really tired, right, of the like affective labor of that like ding, like perfect teeth glitz, right, gloss. And it's exhausting. So, you know, at Pinterest, one of the things we're thinking a lot about is how do we differentiate ourselves? So do we want to be the place of the doom scroll? Like, not really, at least, you know, ideally. And so the way we're approaching it is we want creators to feel like they don't need to be on every day. They don't need to sort of run that rat race. Because one thing we heard a lot from creators is, if I don't log onto Instagram or TikTok or YouTube every day and engage with my audience every day for hours, my engagement drops, my distro drops, my opportunity, like, and that, like, the minute your numbers change, like, that changes your rate card, that changes your ad revenue, like, that changes a lot of things. That makes it so there's this like hamster wheel thing. And our point of view is we want both creators and pinners to find something cool, be inspired by our platform, and then like go do it. And so the way we're thinking of it is like, our distro system doesn't require you don't need to post every day. You don't need to engage every day. So we actually, you know, one of the ways we're trying to make this sustainable and trying to address creator mental health is how can we make our platform just like less demanding for like for everyday kind of like meaningless engagement. You know, one creator often said in the research was like, I often feel like a bad boyfriend to Pinterest because I take a lot, but I don't necessarily think I give a lot. And actually, like, please let me be your lazy side piece. Like, that makes me really happy that, you know, we are less demanding and that we're not as exhausting. And so like, I think that's the way we're thinking about our product strategy.
Thank you very much. So we have a question from online, Dr. MJ Liu. Thanks, Marcos, for sharing this interesting study. I wonder if any of the creators mentioned about algorithms and their impact on their content exposure and monetization of their content.
That's all creators think and talk about if you let them. This is a big challenge for creators, is staying on top of algo changes, staying on top of distro changes. And, you know, no platform can divulge like the inner workings of your algorithm. And so it turns into this like broken telephone. Oh, if you post at like midnight when Aries is in the 4th house and Mercury is in alignment, like it'll get better. And so like, and a lot of it, like, it was interesting hearing like people's theories because there's so much anxiety about it that, you know, one creator said, I went on holiday with my family for 2 weeks and I purposely didn't take my phone. And on a lot of her platforms, her distro dropped so dramatically, it impacted her rate card. So like, that is the algorithm implicitly telling you, you must plug in every day, because if you don't, your livelihood is at stake. Your passive livelihood, if you're doing a rev share with ads, or your, you know, like brand deals, because if your engagement drops and your numbers drop, like, a company won't pay what you ask. So it's a constant worry for creators.